Hi, I'm Giancarlo,
And I'm Felicia.
and this is our review of Fortune and Glory. And I'm gonna make you carry that big ass box.
I know, I feel like I have a midget on me.
Some people call me midgets.
Really?
Yeah,
No, you're not.
that small. That's because
No.
I'm hunched over now. But no, I'm not that small. Fortune and Glory. I used to have Fortune and Glory.
Really?
Yeah, and then I started to do
There's hot
board
chicks
game
on,
reviews.
hot chicks on the box. Fortune and Glory is a game based on epic treasure hunting in the mid-50s pulp movie genre. We will go through the components of the game in detail, so that when we're explaining the game, you'll understand it better. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the review. The box is nice and big and keeps everything well organized. Inside you'll find the world map. On the map, there will be major cities surrounded by a gold ring, and minor cities surrounded by a silver ring. Some of the water spaces have numbers, which is how many moves you need to go into that space. Each area also has symbols depicting the terrain of that area, from jungles to deserts to Skyrim. Some cities have ports which can be used in different instances of the game. So now you know what the board looks like. Let's get into the cards. The event cards are what you usually hold in your hand. These cards will have special abilities that will help you in your quest for the treasure, or give malaria to an opponent in the jungle areas, or create a blizzard in solitude. These are the cards which are the base of your actions and can be played almost any time. Some of these will be played immediately when you draw them and will do a special effect. The city cards are the cards which you will draw from if you are visiting a city. When you're in a city, you interact with it by healing yourself, buying gear and items, or finding an ally. But before you can do all that, you will draw a city card, which will be good or bad for you. These cards happen immediately unless you draw a secret objective, which is usually to drop off a package at a specific city. You might be hunted down by Nazis or get caught up in a car chase.
The gears and allies will cost 5 glory point each, and you'll get glory tokens as you make adventures. For example, if you survive the car chase, you'll get the glory listed on the card, and then can spend it in cities. Gears will help you pass combat tests, reroll dice, and do other effects, while allies can help you in many different tests. For example, a driver can help you during a car chase. These cost 5 glory each to draw, and you don't know what you'll get until you use glory. Don't think of these things as you get in a store. Think of them as items or people you come across from adventuring. That's why they're random. However, if you're looking to buy stuff, you can also buy items from the item deck. These have a glory value on them, and this is the only deck you can actually look through to buy stuff. If ever someone loses an item, it's not discarded, but put back into this deck. Once you bought what you need with glory, you can also spend glory to heal your wounds.
There are different types of enemies you'll encounter. These are in the enemies decks and the Nazi deck. In the enemies deck, you'll find a bit of everything. In the Nazi deck, well, you'll find Nazis. These enemies are sometimes drawn when you're in a city or fighting dangers on an adventure. The villain deck is small and has 3 major villains for each the mob and the Nazi. When playing a co-op game, your group will have to choose which one of the 2 factions you'll be facing, mob or Nazi. These villains are also after the treasure located throughout the world, and some of them might even beat you to them. It's up to you to race against them and get there first. They have a search skill and a combat skill which can be used against you while you sneak past them or try to fight them. They also have event cards. These cards are just like your cards but are made specifically for the villains and are usually played immediately or placed in play for the entire game. These cards will help the villains defeat you. There are also 4 enemy reference cards which are set to the side in case a player ever needs to fight one of them because of a city card or a danger card.
The location deck is the deck of cards used to choose random locations on the board. They can be used to get a random city or a random area. They are also used to find out where the treasures are located. The artifact deck is just a deck with the artifacts and how much fortune they are worth. Fortune is victory points in the game, and you'll need 15 to win when playing a competitive game. The adventure deck is the card placed under the treasure to finish off the name of the artifact and also give the adventure a special rule if any are written at the bottom. You'll understand more of this in the setup of the game section of our video. Finally, the danger deck. The deck which you'll want to sleeve because it's shuffled at least 25 times during a given game. This is the deck where the magic happens. It's the dangers you'll have to pass during your adventure towards a treasure. The adventure card of a treasure tells you how many dangers you'll encounter during that quest. We'll go into details of adventuring later.
Now the character cards. Each player will draw one randomly, and this will be their character. They have 4 skills which are used for passing adventures. The number is how many dice you roll from that skill. At the top you'll find the starting location, and at the bottom you'll find the defense and wounds. Each character, of course, has different abilities to help them in winning the game. The villains also have character sheets for each of the 2 factions. And the Zeppelin has his own double-sided sheet as well. Among the huge amount of tokens, you'll find wound markers, city markers, occupied markers, ally markers, collapsed markers, and others. The game also comes with detailed miniatures for the characters, the Nazi soldiers, the villains, the Zeppelin, the mobsters, and the temples. The final component of the game are the glory tokens and the fortune tokens. We can now get into the setup and gameplay.
To set up the game, simply give each player a character card. Some of them will start with a random ally or gear card as well. Place their character on the starting city written on their sheet. Shuffle all the decks and place them next to the board. Yes, there are a lot of decks in this game, so be sure to have a nice big table to play on. Now it's time to set up 4 random treasures around the world. Draw a location card to see where the first treasure will be and place a skull marker there. Next, draw an artifact card and an adventure card to create the artifact. Place that to the side with the same colored skull token on it. So now you know where the artifacts are located. Do this for 4 treasures.
There are 4 ways of playing. You can play competitively, cooperatively, in teams, and finally solo. We will show you the co-op game since it includes all the rules. Since we're playing co-op, we need to choose which faction we are fighting against. Let's try the Nazi. Place their card next to the board and draw 2 villain cards from the Nazi deck. One of the villains starts at a location of the treasure with the most fortune value, and the other starts on his card. When villains come into play, they come in with 2 bodyguards as well. They just add +1 combat die and +1 search die. They will also take the first 2 wounds before the villain does. Next is a Zeppelin. Choose a side for it. We'll choose the War Zeppelin. And draw a random location card to see where it starts. The Nazi also starts with a random secret outpost, which generates more soldiers during the game. Put the villain marker on 0. If they reach 15, you all lose the game. You're now ready to start the co-op game.
The rounds have 5 phases. The initiative phase is to see who goes first. Each player rolls a die and the highest player gets the first player marker. If you roll a 1 during this step, draw a free event card. The next phase is the movement phase. Each player will roll a die and move up that many spaces. Again, if you roll a 1 during this phase, draw a free event card. Next is the adventure phase. This is the best part of the game. If you're in a city, you can interact with it, which means first you draw a city card and do its effects, and then you can buy and heal. If you draw a danger card in the city, you must try to pass the tests. In a car chase, for example, you need to roll for agility or cunning. If you have 4 agility, you roll 4 dice and you must get the number listed or higher. If you do, you get to place a success marker for each die you rolled on a success, and you get to roll again. If you get enough success tokens, the danger is passed and you get the glory tokens. If you fail the test because you rolled badly, your turn ends and you must complete the cliffhanger at the bottom of the card next turn, or else you're KO'd. All danger cards are solved in this manner unless you're in combat. If you find yourself in combat with an enemy, you roll your combat dice against their combat dice. On each die of 3 or more, the opponent takes a wound minus the defense on the card. Fights go on until one of the parties is KO'd, except in a villain fight. So that's if you're in a city, but what if you're in an empty land space? Well, then you must roll 1 die, and on a 1, you will fight a random enemy card. On a 2 or 3, you do nothing and waste your turn, and on a 4, 5, or 6, you get an event card. If you're on an area with a treasure, you can choose to go in on its adventure. The bottom of the adventure card has a number of dangers which you must pass to get that treasure. Basically, shuffle the danger deck and draw a card from the bottom. Try to complete that adventure. If you complete it, place a danger mark on it and glory value on it. Now you have 2 choices. Continue, which will draw a new danger card, or camp down, which will heal you and give you everything on the previous danger cards. If you continue, you can keep going until you get to the treasure. However, if you ever get to a danger card which you fail, you'll lose all glory tokens on the previous cards and you flip the card to its cliffhanger side. Your turn ends immediately. During your next adventure phase, you must try to pass the cliffhanger or you're KO'd. If you pass it, you can continue your adventure towards the treasure. If you have enough danger tokens, take that treasure and place it next to your character. You must not try and deliver it to a city to sell it for its fortune value.
Once everyone has done their adventuring phase, it's time to see what the villains do. During the villain phase, you'll draw a villain event card and do what it says. If you draw a tactics card, roll a die and see what happens on the faction card summary. Then, roll a die for each outpost. Depending on what you roll, you might place random soldiers. The Zeppelin now has a turn which will move it around the board and drop soldiers as it goes. If there is a ready Nazi on his card, place him on a treasure on the board, with 2 guards as always. And finally, the villains at the treasures will adventure for it. They roll their search dice, and for every 4 or higher, it's a success. If they get enough to beat the danger value, they take the treasure and the track moves up by 2. If they roll a 1 on any of the dice, they get a wound for each 1 rolled and must stop their search that round. If they take enough wounds to be KO'd, remove them and place them on their card in a KO'd state. They will come back later in the game. Once the villains have had their turn, a new round begins. If you ever enter a spot with the soldiers or a mobster, you must stop and fight them. Just follow the stats of that enemy on its card. If you ever try to get a treasure at the same location as a villain, you must try to sneak past him between each danger. To do this, choose a number from 1 to 6. Roll the search of the villain. If he rolled the number you choose, he saw you and you must fight him for a single round. This can lead to you being KO'd or to you KOing the villain. Oh, and just so you know, you can board the Zeppelin and sneak into it to destroy it as well. You now know most of what the game is like and what it's about. There is some advanced elements like temples which are full of fortune but can collapse on you or a villain. You can also make the game easier by allowing player to fly between cities for a cost of 2 fortunes. And you can play with the deep jungle rule, which makes treasure there a little harder to find. To win the game, check the table in the rulebook to see how many points each side needs to win. When a treasure is returned to a city, the group collects that much fortune. If you bring it back to a major city, you get +1 fortune. At the end of each round, if there is missing treasures on the board, replenish it back to 4. There should always be 4 treasures on the map at the end of each round. As soon as you get enough fortune, you immediately win the co-op game. If the villain track reaches its victory number, you immediately lose that game.
Now for our thoughts on this game. First off, I want to say that our review team is split into 2 groups on this one. Some of us liked it and some of us disliked it. So this is one of those games that before buying it, you have some things to consider, and hopefully our video will help you in deciding if the game is for you or not. The co-op game is very easy, and we never felt at the edge of our seat. We always won the game with the enemy not even being close to winning. The competitive game is really fun, and we all enjoyed it a lot. However, the game is also very random. There's little strategy in this game. Most of what you're doing is rolling dice to see who starts, rolling dice to see how far you move, rolling dice to pass tests, and finally rolling dice to battle. Even what you find in cities is random. The only thing you really have control over is the items you want to buy and where you want to move. So if your group loves strategy games, this might not be for them. However, this game still has an epic feel to it. You always feel like you just played an epic game, but it only lasted 2 hours. Sometimes you just want to play an epic game without thinking too much, a casual yet massive game. There's so much going on during a player's turn, which can be good for the players but sometimes boring for the others, unless you're like us who likes to create over-the-top stories while playing. This game really works well with groups who like to roleplay, reenact scenarios, and read the entire flavor of each card as you're playing. We feel that having more than 4 players just drags the game too long, and it's best played with 4 players, especially when there is the villain phase as well. More players equals more villains, which equals longer villain phases. You'll feel like you're in an epic movie or playing Uncharted. The art is fantastic, the production quality is good, and as always, you get a music CD. You'll need a big table to play on since there's a lot of stuff to keep track of and decks to draw from. There is some player interaction, but not as much as you might think. The treasures are always different each game you play, and the replay value is awesome. If you're looking for an epic game with a little thinking involved and you just want to have a good time storytelling, then you'll love this game. The rulebook is good but somewhat disorganized. You'll need to read it twice, or maybe only once after seeing our video. The danger cards are fun and the cliffhangers even better. It's always amusing to see what predicaments you get yourself into. All for fortune and glory. If your group has good imagination and don't like strategic games, they will love it. We're giving this game an epic 8 out of 10. Again, do not expect a strategy game.